Okay, so today I'm here to answer the question of how is government immoral? And today, in order to do that, I'm going to just gotta lay a base. What are our morals? And then we'll see how government is immoral. So to do that, I'm going to ask you three simple questions, and then we're going to figure out, and I'll briefly explain how government is immoral. So the first question would be, in your day-to-day life, do you use violence to solve any of your personal problems?
No.
Only if I have to.
Only if you have to. See, but well, that would lead into the second question, which would be, with the exception of self-defense of yourself and others, would you consider it wrong and immoral to violently enforce your ideas onto other people?
Yes.
Right. See, yeah, that's not what most people would answer. And then, with the third question would be, would you consider it wrong and immoral to violently enforce your ideas onto other people?
Yes.
Right. See, yeah, a lot of people, are non-violent. Definitely are against that violence as well. But as a community of people here in Louisville and wherever you're watching at home, we're told that the only way to affect any kind of change in our community or to solve any personal problem is through government. And so the way that they tell us to do that is through voting. So we vote. We vote with our ideas, we vote with our preferences, and in effect we elect the politician. And the politician's only job, his or her only job, is to legislate those ideas of opinions into law. And those opinions of laws are backed and enforced by the police and government. And so let's take gambling, for example. If I were to gamble illegally, I would be kidnapped, arrested, thrown into a cage, a prison, in which if I refuse or try to resist because I don't agree with those opinions or ideas, I'd be met with even more violence, or sometimes shot or murdered. So, and this is also funded through even more violence, because at no point do I have the freedom of economic choice to say, I want to help the poor, but I don't want to fund war. You don't have that freedom of economic choice. You have to give up your money. You have to pay you give up your property. You have to pay your taxes, because at no point can you say, like I said, I want to help the poor or I want to fund war. You can put any other thing there. You have to pay your taxes. And if you did have that freedom of economic choice, they wouldn't threaten you to throw you into another prison if you didn't pay your taxes. Let's see. I also want the ability to, the way that they're also moral is because I also want the ability to cancel or unsubscribe like you would like a normal business. So let's take United Airlines, for example. They just recently had a big scandal where they violently threw a guy off of a plane because they needed space for employees. So, because we can do this with a business, we can cancel and unsubscribe. We say, no, I'm not going to go with United Airlines anymore. I'm going to go with Southwest or Delta or, whatever. We can have these choices to go with other ones, but we don't have that choice with government. For example, the post office, that's a government-enforced monopoly. You can't start your own post office. It's actually illegal and criminal to start your own, to actually deliver pieces of paper. FedEx and UPS, they can deliver packages, but they can't deliver pieces of mail. There was actually a guy in the mid-1800s named Lysander Spooner who created his company was the American Letter Mail Company. And this company actually was also the sort of the founder, I guess you would say, of the 3-cent stamp. He started his own paper company to challenge the government monopoly post office. So he started his post office, and he started, around the same as the government, and then he was able to lower his prices as he expanded, and he actually got Congress to temporarily lower their cost of delivering mail twice. And then once they realized that this was going to be a threat and they might put him out of business, they strengthened their monopoly, and they sued him so much that he couldn't stay with business anymore. So another monopoly that government has is also on security. So it actually, if you look at the Supreme Court cases, DeShaney versus Winnebago County and Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, that the government, the police, actually have no obligation to protect your life, liberty, or property. In the case of DeShaney versus, actually, it was Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, where Gonzalez actually had a restraining order against somebody and the police didn't enforce it. And the Supreme Court thought that that was okay, that they have no obligation to protect her life, liberty, or property. And that's kind of funny because if you look at it like a normal business like Netflix, what if you subscribe to Netflix and you say, oh, you still have to pay $8 a month, but we're not obligated to give you a streaming service. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And even if you take out the immorality of government, the whole principle of monopolies versus competition doesn't make a whole lot of economic sense either. If you look at monopolies in a purely economic standpoint, you have what's called deadweight loss, where the consumer is going to pay a higher price for a roughly same amount of product than you would if you had competition or competitors. Okay, so the monopolies versus perfect competition. In a government, you only have a monopoly where there's only one factor, where in a perfect competition, entrepreneurs are allowed to come in, enter, and leave the market at any time. And like I said, with monopolies, there's this thing called deadweight loss, where consumers are going to pay a higher price than if there was a competitor. So you're already losing economic sensibility from a consumer standpoint if you have competitors. Whereas, like I said, in a government, there's only one competitor. You're already losing. You're paying more for it. There's a lot of, you can think of businesses as trying to run as efficiently as possible, trying to cut down those costs. But if you look at the post office, their efficiency is taking down clocks, so that way you don't really know how long you've been standing in line. You've been waiting in line for so long, but there's no clocks on the wall, so you don't really know. That's your post office government efficiency. So another way that the government is immoral, we can also take a look at it as voting. The idea of voting is also immoral. So let's go back to the original 3 questions that I asked. The third one was, do you consider it wrong and immoral to violently enforce your ideas onto other people? We all agreed, yeah, it's wrong to violently enforce your ideas onto other people. But if you look at it, if you're in the majority of the voting party, or if in another country you don't have a party, you just vote on the legislation itself. If you're in the majority opinion, then you get to enforce your idea of that legislation onto the minority. But we already agreed that that was immoral. So think of it especially in the United States, Republican versus Democrat right now. Republicans were in the majority in the presidential election. Now they get to enforce their opinion on the minority, the Democrats, right? So, and we don't really see this as forcing opinions onto other people. We just see this as voting, right? And this is actually a concept called a tyranny of the majority, which was actually warned to us by James Madison way back in the Founding Fathers days. So, let's see. So we really started off by agreeing that we were against violence and we were against the initiation of violence. But the idea of government and everything actually goes against our morals and against our moral integrity, because the government only knows how to solve problems through one way, a singular way, and that's through the threat of and use of violence, as opposed to the myriad of different ways that you and I and us 4 or 5 of us and all of us at home share. We solve problems through, maybe if we haven't come to a problem, let's say at work, we talk through it, we compromise, whatever. But the government, oh, here's the law, we're going to violently enforce it by gunpoint. So like I said, they only know how to solve problems through one way, a singular way. That's through the threat of and use of violence, as opposed to non-violent solutions that you and I and us 5 already share.